Hey everyone, it's our live event time. We're on Wednesday today, but if you're watching on delay, it doesn't matter. Remember, all of our live events are all archived so you can go back and watch and really take those notes you want or see the technique or hear the description. So, always available to you. That's the wonder of video. My name is Colleen Tauke, and I'm your instructor for this live event. Today, we're working on a project that I nicknamed Pretty Pocket. I was trying to come up with a name, and I'm like, it's not really a bag, it's not a purse, it's kind of a pouch. We're going to call it a pocket. It's the little bag or pouch that you want if you're on a travel trip and you're like, I need to put this in something so it's not floating around, or I'm going to be traveling in the car and I need this, and this, and they're all small items. And if you take them in the car individually, they're going to fall under the seat. And this will give you a little pocket to put those things into. It's easy to find. We're going to do something that still falls into that sustainable stitches you've been hearing about. We're going to repurpose some of those maybe test blocks or blocks that you made and then thought, yeah, no, or now I have the technique figured out, but maybe I want the color placement a little bit different. Or this was just a test and I want to go a completely different genre of fabrics. And you've got the block made, but you don't want to dispose of it because you put some effort into it. So this is a test block that has been split in two. So you can see kind of the X that falls in the center of this block. It was just made with two different fabrics. And it has this really fall kind of feel to it. Cream on cream background, this fun brown and tan, which chocolate brown is making a recurrence. A few years ago, we wouldn't have seen brown in anything. But this block just said, you know what? I need to get used. I don't want to be thrown away. So it became the outer portion of my little bag that I created by simply cutting it in half. Now, I know that's taboo. To cut a block in half is not an easy thing to do. It makes us almost hyperventilate, but being used is better than being put in the closet or in a box or in a stash of things away in another room that never get used. You put effort into it. Let's use it. So the first thing you need to do is kind of go dig through those things that you've made. Now, to tell you the truth, I used to work for a quilt magazine, and we had to test out blocks to make sure the technique worked, make sure the cutting was accurate, make sure that the color placement of values worked, or maybe even making it in a completely different colorway to kind of entice the reader into saying, ooh, I would like to make that. So I have a stash of test blocks, really big, and I probably could be making these bags until the end of time. But I know that as quilters, when you see something, you want to try it out, you test it, and that test block ends up on your design wall and it's staring at you. And you've gone on to a different project by now. And you look back at it and go, I should do something with that. So it's time to go back through those. Maybe pull it off the design wall, pull it out of the closet, pull out that stash box of pieces, and let's determine what may work and maybe we want to save for something else. Okay, so test blocks, a simple churn dash like this. There are blocks that go round, and most of them have a circular design. Most of the designs that we create as quilters are made on a grid. So this is made in a 9-patch grid. This is made by simply adding bars around a center square. So there are blocks that work great, and probably all of these could be turned into some kind of little pouch. But we're going to have to keep in mind that we're going to cut down through the center. So maybe if there's a center seam, maybe that block isn't the best unless we want to maybe disassemble it along that center seam. So I've got a long one like this of 2 blocks put together. This could actually come apart and probably used as 2 little bags. So we could use it like this. And then there is this fun kind of a flying geese star that could possibly be used. Now, when you decide which of the blocks you want to use, these happen to be all in kind of tans and blues. It must have been, I'm kind of in a fall themed selection here, but this is the block that I picked out. I went through those. Some of those are also really great possibilities, but I picked this kind of non-conventional block that has all kinds of different shapes within it. So good morning, we're from Wisconsin, says Lisa. And we have Christine watching from Idaho. Remember, pop in below this video and tell us where you're watching from. We love to see our quilters from all over the United States and across the planet pop in to say hello. Dorothy says hello from Bay City, Michigan. Wonderful. We're glad you're here. We hope you find some inspiration of using up those blocks that you've tried out, you tested, you played with some colorway and didn't quite know what to do with them. Nancy says hello from Southeast Kentucky. And Linda says good morning from Texas. So we've got the country pretty much awake. We've got West Coast, East Coast, the South, and Michigan. That takes us all the way to the north. And then we've got Missouri. Judy watching from Missouri, who's kind of my neighbor since I'm in central Iowa. Now, I chose this kind of contemporary block. It has a snowball block in it here. It has a 4-patch. It has some strip piecing, and it has this really fun print that I thought, okay, let's work on this one. So once you figure out something to the block that you want to use, now these are not all 12.5-inch blocks, but generally around a 10 or 12-inch block is pretty good. If you want to make a smaller pouch, maybe your block is a 6 or a 9, that works too. You'll just have to adjust your zipper length a little bit in order to make it fit, which is very easily done. We've got Barbara saying hello from Kalamazoo, Michigan, and Vicki Ponder, Texas. Oh, coming in fast. Judy says hello from Saskatoon, Canada, and Mary says hello from Iowa. We are glad that you're joining us. We're going to work on using those blocks that we've done as test blocks and trial, maybe of a technique. Maybe on this one, maybe if you did something similar to this, it might have been setting in these triangles on the corner or doing a diagonal sets, because there's so many techniques out there. Sometimes we like to practice them before we jump into a big project, and that really hones those skills nicely. It's a great way to teach yourself. Maybe you're watching along with a video, testing out something. So we're going to work on those blocks. Esther says hello from the Netherlands, and Kathy says good morning from Canada. We've got Patricia watching from Wisconsin. Great. Okay, so the other thing about using up test blocks, sample blocks, orphan blocks, we sometimes call those. Maybe we got busy making maybe 9 patches for something, and we were sewing and cutting, and we didn't actually count. We ended up with a couple of extra. Well, perfect place to make those extra orphan blocks into something usable. So this is also a great way to practice machine quilting, because our piecing skills tend to just skyrocket. Once we start sewing and learning our techniques, our patchwork skills can go from kindergarten to graduate school in a very, very short amount of time. So our patchwork skills get great, but what tends to lag is our machine quilting skills. So this, I'm hoping, is a way for you to practice some of those machine quilting skills also. I know this is a smaller piece than maybe that baby quilt that's looming that you need to get done, but it's a good way for you to start looking at the structure of the block and then making decisions about how it's going to be quilted. Let's see, we've got Julie saying good morning from central Minnesota. We're glad that you're with us, Julie. Now, going ahead and picking something as it's going to be the lining of our basket or our bag. Now, there are many ways to make a bag, a pouch, a zipper pocket like this. I decided that I wanted to be able to practice my machine quilting and help you get motivated to do some machine quilting. So I'm going to make that sandwich, quilt this, then cut it apart and make the bag. There are some techniques out there where they make the outer portion of the bag first, the lining is separate, and there's an inserted zipper between the two layers. But since I'm trying to get you to maybe work on your machine quilting, we're going to make this as a sandwich first and then make the bag. So by selecting a lining fabric, and I usually try to find something a little bit lighter as my lining. I tend not to go really super light because in case I'm, putting marking tools inside this bag, I don't want it to get dirty right away. So I pick something that kind of hides maybe the use factor, the fingers that are going to be pulling things in and out of the bag, but yet not so dark that it makes it hard to see inside that bag of what's in there. So I picked kind of a neutral golden tone fabric like this, and that happens to be the same one that I use in my finished bag here. And then go ahead and layer those up, and more than likely you have scraps of batting also. So we are really trying to use up the things that we already have. So those pieces of batting you've trimmed away from quilts as you've worked, because our quilts are never exactly the size as the packaged batting. We know that. You can even zigzag pieces of batting together and use those inside of a pouch like this so that we use up the things we have, okay? We already purchased it once. We don't need to purchase more. We just need to use what we have. So this one happened to be a 12-inch or about a 13-inch piece that I could easily sandwich between my patchwork portion and my backing fabric. Now, in the instructions, which are available in the comment section there, and you can always go back after if you haven't already downloaded our pattern, the QR code there, all you have to do is shoot it with the camera on your phone, tap on it, and it will take you right to the pattern. That will give you the kind of the particulars and guide you through it, but the video probably is the most helpful. It's kind of hard to describe things in dimension when we're working on a bag, so the video is going to be a great support for you there. We've got Debbie joining us from Colleyville, Texas, and Nancy says, love the idea of making the whole thing quilted and then making the bag. And we have Deborah also from Lincoln, Nebraska joining us. Well, because it's hard to get people to practice machine quilting, I figured this was a good excuse for you to get to the machine and pull out those things once you have this layered up. Now, if you watch, you know that I'm kind of a spray baster. When it comes to small pieces like this, just a little bit of spray base between the layers makes them tacky enough to hold together. But if not, you can easily do an easy pin basting on this in a few places so that all three layers act as one as you put it through the sewing machine. Now, when it comes to machine quilting, there are two approaches that you can take. You can do free motion or you can do straight lines. And if you're going to be doing straight lines, the walking foot, something similar to this, is going to be the foot that you're going to need to put onto your machine. You may have a built-in dual feet walking foot on your machine. Some have just a simple bar that reaches down in the back and hooks into the foot, helps feed the layers through. This is kind of a traditional walking foot that fits on a sewing machine. It has teeth underneath here, similar to the feed dogs of your machine, and that helps feed the layers through. This is for doing straight lines. Now, if you're going to be doing some free motion, which I really wish I could get a lot of people to practice, it's a little bit more challenging, but can be accomplished with practice. Now, this little foot, if I can hold it up, hard part is holding onto it enough to get it to the camera. Okay, there you go. It has a spring along one side. It hops up and down as you are moving across the fabric, and it gives you great visibility. The walking foot seems a little bit more like a presser foot on the machine. So you're doing the straight lines and you're following down the opening there. But this It can either have a circular round hole at the bottom that the needle goes down through. This one happens to be a horseshoe shaped one. So you have visibility of the fabric under the needle, so you can kind of look to where you want to go to do your machine quilting. This one, feed dogs down. This one are feed dogs up. So, and we do have videos at on our sites that will help you with machine quilting, giving you tips on where to start and how fast to move, where to put your hands. So we have some great support there. Tammy says it looks like a clutch to carry with an evening gown. Well, I suppose if you have an elegant brown gown or a cream color gown, you could do that. Quilts show up in the darndest places. So even on an evening out, that would be a fun way to use a block. Linda says, good morning. Nice to see you again. Chatting from Butte, Montana in the Rocky Mountains. We'll finish the pink and white mystery quilt you did earlier this year. Okay. The mystery quilt. A lot of people have been popping in and sharing their finished photos, and it's been fabulous. I think I've counted over, 350 or maybe approaching 400 quilts have been finished from our mystery event. So if that is something new to you and you don't know what the mystery quilt is, you can visit our site, look for videos that will tell you about it. There's tabs that you can tap on for files to get to those patterns. So the mystery quilt was a fun event. And there's always things to learn. No matter how long you're in the quilt world, there are always things to learn. And even myself, I learn new things all the time, or I maybe relearn sometimes. Oh, that's right. I'm supposed to do it this way. So once you get some inspiration maybe for your machine quilting, on this one, let's go to the back side because you can see the shadows that I quilted yesterday. I decided to do just some fun straight lines and then some wiggly lines for my quilting. This one just looks like it has a large X through. Oh, wrong side. This one has an X through. It looks like an X here, but that is actually this light blue block. So I did parallel lines through that and did some really fun geometric kind of back and forth, but did them in parallels and in 2x2s. So it was very contemporary, very modern looking. On the snowball block here, I did a simple crosshatch, very classic way of quilting. I actually divided this up according to the structure of the block itself. A snowball block has these little triangles on the corners, and I use that as my jumping off spot to go diagonally from corner to corner here, and then from the corner out here. So use the structure of the block to decide how to quilt something. The block sometimes speaks to you and says, oh, I have these natural kind of starting and stopping points. Use me, just connect these lines, and then you'll have it quilted. So this area I quilted just by kind of going around the flowers and following the design of the fabric. It's not patchwork. It's just following the fabric itself. Here I had just a strip piece, and I didn't want to just do straight lines. So I went in, I marked, because this is a 4-inch length, I can mark it every inch and then drive from the corner, the structural point here, to the center and then out, and then follow that in parallel V's. So kind of take your inspiration from the block itself. Now on the bag that I actually made, this cream color fabric is very busy. It's a white on cream. So there you go. I can get the shadows. You can see I micro quilted that free motion. So I'm using my little hopper foot, my little free motion foot. Then I just did a really dense meander. If you cross over your line, it's not the end of the world. This is a place to practice. So I did that dense quilting in the cream colors section. But then when it came to the brown out here, I was like, you're not going to see much of anything. I don't want to use a light color thread. I want just some texture. So I did parallel lines through the black brown print there So it gives us some texture, but you don't see the quilting at all there. So those decisions get easier the more you actually do the process. So Shelly says, hello from Kenwick, Washington. Just moved to a new home and haven't set up her sewing room yet. You know what? We all move. We all have to reset. And then this is the perfect time to put everything where you want it and to sort through those things. But remember, we're here for inspiration when you're ready to rock and roll on a project. So we are glad that you're joining us. Okay, once you have your block all stitched, all machine quilted, and the last line is in, it's time to simply square up your block. So, and what happens if your block isn't perfect? Oh dear, that happens. There are many times when a block doesn't quite end up square because it's a test block. Maybe our technique wasn't perfect. Well, you know what? You can cut a square or a rectangle if it needs to be. And don't worry about points. Don't worry about perfect intersections and 1/4 inch seams. Just get this trimmed up into a square or a rectangle, whichever you can accomplish out of this, because the idea is to make something, not a headache. So we're going to trim our block up. And then and you can see this block is crooked. It doesn't exactly want to square up. So we are going to just trim the best we can and still include, if it goes, we'll have enough fabric there to catch that in the seam allowance. I told you, not every block is perfect, but we can make it look perfect by just creating something where the eye isn't going to see all that detail. It's just going to see the front and the back of the bag. Okay, once you have this all trimmed, if you own a serger, this is the time, pull it out, serge those edges all the way around. Or if you don't have a serger, your machine more than likely does a zigzag stitch. So this is where we do a zigzag all the way around to really give that outer edge some stability so it doesn't fray when it's being used. Like I said, there are many ways to finish the inside of a bag. This just happens to be one of the quick ways to finish. So zigzag all the way around to finish those edges off. And then it's decision time. Which way are you going to cut your block? Are you going to cut it this way or this? Well, since there's a seam that will fall right down the center of my block, or right on the cut line, if I go this direction, I'm going to select the other direction. So I've already marked that so that I can just simply cut it apart. And I know this is the hardest part, to cut apart a block, but here we go. Now we have 2 pieces. We are ready. And I'm also going to have you edge finish this. You could cut it apart, edge finish all the way around one and then all around the other, so that those are all nice and stable. Now it's time to pick a zipper. And I was auditioning different zippers. Most of these I think are 14-inch zippers, if I remember right. Let me see the edge of my mat here. Yep, these are 14-inch zippers. That way I know that they would be long enough for my block. So I just went to the store and picked a variety of things and then kind of auditioned to see what you could take your block to the store if you don't want to purchase extras. You could go light down the center. It brings attention to the zipper. So that's something to think about. Black I thought about, but there really isn't black in this block. So black is out. And then I have this chocolate brown. So I think, yeah, I like the fact that the zipper just kind of goes away when the block is put together, back together. So I like that brown down through there. So that's the one I'm going to use. Okay, so when it comes to, like I said, having a little bit extra length of zipper because we're going to shorten it to fit, that is usually the way to go than worrying about getting the exact right size of zippers. So move these guys out of the road. We are going to take these and remembering which pieces, and if you kind of need a reference, so you remember, okay, that's where the zipper is going to go. I'm just going to put a pin in here so I can remember while I'm maneuvering everything, I am going to put a mark, and the instructions I tell you to mark in 1/2 inch along that opening area so that you have a reference point to start and stop your zipper application. And that will allow enough room so that the bag will lay flat and neat and tidy. Now, if you apply the zipper all the way to the seam line, there's not going to be enough room for the zipper teeth to come forward and meet. It will bunch and kind of do a buckle on both ends. So we need just a little bit of space in there so that when the zipper comes together, everything will lay nice and flat and somewhat square like this. And it bubbles a tiny bit, but not excessively. So if we're trying to get it to look nice and not have a whoops at the end of it, we are going to want to leave a little bit of extra seam allowance on both ends. We're not going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. We're just going to use that as the start and stop point for our zipper. So little ruler, square ruler, whatever one you have that you can grab, so you can mark a 1/2 inch point on your quilted piece. So you have that reference there. And then on this side, all 4 start and stops we want marked. And the last side here, so that once we are putting our zipper in, we'll know where to stop and start our stitching. There we go. Okay, now the tricky part of getting our zipper into that is we need to create a new stop for our zipper and then make sure that we don't twist everything when we're trying to put it together. So deep breath, everybody, because it can get twisted. Always double check before you stitch. How do I know this? I've probably done it once or twice. Okay, so we're going to make sure our iron is warm for later because we're going to press along that edge and give it a nice fold so we can do some top stitching on it. And we're going to shorten our zipper. Now, the zipper, at the very top of our zipper, you have these little metal teeth that are the stops, okay? That stop is going to be aligned with that 1/2 inch mark at the on one side of your pouch or pocket. And then we're going to measure down, and where that mark 1/2 inch is in, I'm going to put a pin. So we know that's how much zipper we're going to need to actually use in our project. And we're going to have extra teeth here. We have extra zipper tape. And what I'm going to do, there were days in the past where I remember trying to take off that metal stop and move it up so that it looks like it was just perfect. But you know what? That zipper stop is going to be in the interior of the bag. You're never going to see it. So we can do that same thing with needle and thread. So we're going to go down about, a 1/4 inch from where we're going to stop stitching. And I just have a needle and thread, and I'm going to just do a wrap stitch around the teeth at that point. And I will hold it up for the camera here just a second. I'm using a light color thread so you'll be able to see it. And I'm going to make a new stop. Now, this isn't a pair of jeans. This isn't a backpack that's going to take a lot of stress. So we can easily make a new stop for the bottom of our zipper by just doing a whip stitch about 5 or 6 times around and tie that off. Zipper to lay down. Tie that off and snip. Now, I would probably do a little bit nicer of a job, but I'm going to trim my tail here. Okay. That is with the little pin. That's where we're going to stop stitching. I made a new stop about a 1/4 to 1/2 inch beyond that, so I can trim off this excess zipper and it won't come apart. Now, these are nylon teeth, so I can easily slide my zipper or my scissors between the teeth and take off the excess. Some people want to do a fabric cover. You could do zigzag on the end of that. If you're using a zipper with metal teeth in it, be very cautious as you cut between the teeth. The scissors will slip between that. Okay, now we are going to put in the first side. Now I'm going to open my zipper, and at one point I'm going to actually be moving the zipper as I stitch to get it out of the way. But what we're going to do is lay the zipper teeth toward the center of the bag. Look, actually I should start on this side. It's a little easier for me to stitch on for camera. Looking where that metal zipper stop is, I'm trying to match that up or get it right near that 1/2 inch in mark. So they're one over the other. And then you can use wonder clips. You can use pins. You can do this freehand with nothing if you'd like, but line that up. So you're rolling the zipper teeth toward the fabric, not towards the opening, so that the zipper tape is lined up with your overcast edge. This one hasn't been overcast. I can always do it later too, but we are going to then pivot back this extra teeth. So we're going to pull this back so into an angle at about a 45-degree angle. Let me hold that up for the camera here so that you can see what I'm doing. I want it kind of back and out of the way. And I know an overhead camera would be great, but I don't have one. So this is how we make do. Okay, you can see I've folded that excess tape back and away, making about a 40 or a 90-degree angle, I can think. 90-degree angle, squared off here. So the tape is back and out of the way. Okay, now I am going to use my positioning of my needle. If you don't have the availability to move the needle on your machine, go to a zipper foot where you can work with the foot off to one side, the needle to the opposite. This one on this machine, I can shift my needle way to one side so that I can still use this foot for stitching. I'm going to secure stitch at the very beginning, do a couple of stitches so that my thread is lodged in the fabrics, and then I'm just going to straight stitch along that. Now the side of my needle, or the side of my presser foot, is right up against the teeth of the zipper, so that it kind of forces it into a nice straight line as I go along. And as I get closer to the zipper pull itself, I'm going to lift up my presser foot, pull my zipper up past the foot, and I got to maneuver just the tips of my fingers. So I can get it just past there. By leaving the needle down, I can slide it out of the way, and then I can get a hold of that zipper pull and take it up so that it's out of the way so I can pass through the end. And now kind of keeping an eye on where that 1/2 inch mark is. And you may want to use your ruler to give you a reference on the other side. So you can kind of eye the needle. I need one more stitch to make it to that 1/2 inch point, and then reinforce stitch there. Cut my thread. And now, as I pull it out, you can see I've inserted down that one side all the way along the zipper, stopping a 1/2 inch from the bottom. I started about a 1/2 inch down, and making sure you do trim away your threads as you work is really pretty important so that they don't get caught up in your stitching. There we go. We've got one side inserted. And then the trick is to get the other side inserted too. So again, flipping that, I'm going to flip this out and away so that the teeth are toward the center of my patchwork. That stop needs to be about at the 1/2 inch mark there. So I'm going to put a pin in it just to hold it, because this time we're going to work from the other end of the zipper. And I will pull this extra tape out of the way as I approach it so that I don't have to worry about a needle poking me. I always was a 4-H'er that hated to pin or baste anything, and my mom will verify that. So I tend to work kind of on the fly when it comes to working on, okay, I need to pin that, but I don't want to pin too many things because I don't want to end up getting stuck. Okay, we're going to pull the zipper down and away, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start 1/2 inch down. So I've got my little handy ruler nearby so I can make sure that where I start is 1/2 inch down. So right there, put my pin in the starting point. And that way I will start where I need and put that presser foot down. Whoops, a little too far, too high. Remember the 1/2 inch down. Make sure you reinforce stitch. We don't do that in piecing very often, kind of a stitch in place, because we don't want to have to take it out later. But on things that have a zipper or are going to take some stress on seams, we do want that reinforcement stitch there as we begin and end this. So either stitch right in place or back stitch just a tiny, tiny bit there. Okay. I'm going to raise my presser foot, move my zipper out of the way, back and away. So much easier when it's back out of the way. There we go. Put my presser foot back down and stitch it out the rest of the way. Now, if you're new to sewing and you have never used a zipper foot, take a look in your the feet attachments that came with your machine and your manual. This is a great time to learn about the zipper foot. It tends to have a metal bar that has kind of a scooped out space on either side for the needle position, and your machine will have a setting that you will need to go to use the zipper foot. So it's time to learn a little about your machine too. Okay, when I got to that last 1/2 inch, I left my needle in the down position, pulled that extra zipper tape off to the side so I can make that squared off section. Okay. It was going to be hard to do this video if I had too many steps done and you didn't actually see it in motion. So that's why we're actually sewing today. Okay, the zipper is inserted down the center. Time to do a little bit of pressing, and then we will do top stitching, and we'll talk about the top stitching and the folding to get the rest of this done. So get my cup out of the way here. And for the pressing portion, I want to press that seam out and away on top of the zipper tape. And I will go back and do an edge stitch later to give it a defined edge so that the seam stays back out of the way. But that's how you can use the kind of the nose of your iron to press that edge. And luckily, by making sure that I started my zipper at the same point, down 1/2 inch, and then my seams that I actually cut through are actually lining up quite well across the zipper from each other. So with a really warm iron, you can get a nice press on that edge. And then the other side really quick so we can talk about the top stitch. And here's your best friend. Let's use a little bit of moisture. Things press nicely when they get warm with a little bit of steam, and they take on a really nice crisp press that way. And work our way along the zipper to get that edge. There we go. Nice and pressed. So now your zipper is down the center. You can, if you've already edge stitched or finished that edge there, it's ready to go. Since I didn't do mine, I'll go back and do a small zigzag over that edge to secure it. But now my zipper is down the center of my block. My seams just happen to line up one after the other. The only thing you have left to do now is to turn this right sides together and stitch the outer portion of your bag. Remember that you started down or in 1/2 inch as you inserted your zipper. And now I'm going to open my zipper up so I can align these. You're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance around the perimeter, the 3 sides left here, and pull your zipper up and away and stitch all the way around the outer portion of your bag. And that will be the finish. I'll turn this one inside out for you. Like I said, there is a point where you would just have to kind of take a deep breath. It's not always easy to maneuver near the zipper, but it's doable. I'll turn this one right side out so you can see. I finished my edges first, so they are all zigzagged, and then you can maybe see here better. The 1/4 inch seam is done there in chocolate brown, so you can see I stitched around the 3 sides. Let's poke this side out. There are 3 sides of the bag, and make sure that you reinforce stitch at your beginning and ending again. This is going to take some more stress, so just gently make sure that you kind of reinforce at those points. Then you can easily turn your bag right side out, and you have your pretty pouch all finished. In this case, some of the points aligned, some of them didn't. Don't worry about it. I did take it to the machine or to the iron and give it a light press at the seams here so that everything would lay nice and flat. And by having that 1/2 inch, that gives you a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and there's an extra 1/4 across there, so it kind of squares off your zipper, and you end up with a really pretty pouch. I did add a zipper pull of just a piece of satin ribbon to make this easy to grab in the car so that it can easily zip the bag closed. Jennifer says, greetings from North Carolina. We'll watch later. I'm in the middle of quilting my first heart square practice. And perfect. We are glad that you are joining us. Remember, take a deep breath as you're quilting. I think one of the biggest hurdles for quilters when they're actually doing machine quilting is to remember to breathe. We tend to hold our breath because we are so nervous and so worried about every little stitch. After a while, those stitches all just melt together and it looks fabulous. So remember to breathe. Our muscles need the oxygen. So will the iron melt the plastic zipper teeth? Mine, this zipper is a nylon zipper, so it's quite heat resistant. If you have a, maybe check with the manufacturer of the zipper you're using. If it has heat sensitive teeth, then you may need to just stay to the side of the zipper, but the nylon zippers are quite heat resistant. So I guess it's a double check on the type of zipper you're using in that case. That's a very good question because with the heat settings on our irons, we always worry about damaging either fabrics, battings, threads, zippers, anything like that. So that was a really good question. Okay, without any other questions there, I hope that you have a little bit of inspiration to go and create a pretty little pouch of your own using some of those test blocks, sample blocks, things that you may have not wanted to discard, but now maybe you found a home for it. Thanks for joining me today.